Welcome back to the Victorian Hyper Yielding Crops Research Centre. This project, which we refer to as the HYC, is a GRDC funded initiative led by FAR Australia. Hello and welcome back to the Victorian Hyper Yielding Crops Research Centre here at Narwarri, just west of Geelong. It's now late October and since our last video we've had some really good growing conditions. In terms of rainfall, both August and September were above the long-term average, and although not yet completed, October has already seen more rainfall than the long-term mean. An official La Niña event has been declared, which historically speaking, for this region, indicates a higher chance of cooler and wetter conditions, hopefully making for an ideal grain fill period. In this video, Nick Poole and myself will be looking at how effective our fungicide managements have been on wheat and barley across a range of different germplasm.
Yeah, hi there. Welcome back. Last time we were here, we were looking at our varieties at stages between about growth stage 30 and some just coming up to flag leaf back in mid-August. As Darcy has already said, we've had some really good growing conditions, and what we're now able to look at is the results of some of the management that we've applied. This is our disease management by germplasm interaction trial. And we start here because we started here last time we were here in mid-August. What we have in this first rank of plots is 10 varieties that we've actually left completely untreated with fungicide. And we start with Trojan that's actually been badly affected by this new pathotype, the 198 pathotype, this season. You can see that the flag leaf and F-1 have been totally destroyed with stripe rust. In fact, looking through the canopy, you can see that stripe rust has been so significant this season, it's almost completely defoliated the crop. So what are we looking at in this particular hyper yielding crops trial? Well, what we're after is commercial varieties that actually enable us to reduce our fungicide input. Now we've started with Trojan here, and this now has actually become so significant in terms of disease that we've actually got the disease moving into the head. So let's go and have a look and see if we can see other varieties that perhaps might have a little more resistance genetically to the diseases that we've got here at Narwarri. Moving along, this is Nighthawk. But just look at the difference and the effect of genetic resistance. If you put a main stem of Trojan alongside a main stem of Nighthawk, you can actually see just how valuable that additional genetic resistance can be to us. Sure, it's an untreated crop, and you can see that disease is now moving on to the flag leaf. What we're after though, if we can possibly get it, is a variety that will allow us to go to flag leaf without the need of the crutch of a fungicide being applied. Why the flag leaf? Because by the time we reach flag leaf, usually we've got a pretty good idea of exactly what the season's going to throw at us. In other words, the conditions up to flag leaf very often dictate our disease pressure. Nighthawk's one that we'll be looking at the yield and the economics from plots such as this in order to actually see if we can get all the way to flag leaf without the need for a fungicide. We've moved further along through exactly the same trial. Here we're looking at two feed wheats that are slightly later to develop than the Trojan and the Nighthawk. They're just finishing flowering. We're excited about these two wheats. They're both European wheats, but from a latitude roughly around that France and across. This is Annapurna, which will be commercialised this coming autumn, and a crock that we've had for a number of seasons now. Both of these have performed extremely well in the Hyper Yielding Cereals project, and we're excited because we think that some of that yield potential can be replicated in the longer season or irrigated scenarios here on the mainland. But it's not just the phenology, the yield potential, it's actually that if you compare them to say revenue, which has been grown widely across the long season high rainfall zone, they look like they've got that little bit more disease resistance. To finish our comparison of those cultivars that we're looking at untreated, I want to show you a variety that's been incredibly popular for a number of years, but is now, because of changes of pathotype and strains of disease, changing to being much more susceptible. That's the variety Revenue. And here you can see in an untreated crop its other scourge, Septoria triticide blotch. And when you look at it, it's completely defoliated those lower leaves and has moved up onto the flag leaf. And what a contrast, because if you compare it here to Adagio, which we've had also for a number of years, it's just perhaps not got that yield potential we've seen in a crock, you can see just the difference is enormous. Untreated with fungicides in the high rainfall zone, like I say, we're always going to be asking for trouble. However, what we're looking for is something with enough resistance to get us further through to flag leaf, by which time we can make decisions knowing that all of our money leaves, as we talked about in the last YouTube clip, are actually there to be sprayed. So we've just been looking at a number of cultivars untreated with fungicides. We've more here to show you on visits, but I've featured just a few. And to recap, the kind of effects we see on the flag leaf can be seen on the clipboard here. You can see not only differences of disease, but also the different nature of the size of the flag leaves. Here in the middle, Trojan untreated with fungicide. Notice you can't see the stripe rust at this stage. All you see is actually the destruction it's caused in terms of green leaf area. Next to it, but with a different disease being the cause, Revenue with the untreated flag leaves here showing Septoria triticide blotch, and also the beginnings of leaf rust coming in near the base of the leaf, a really favoured spot because the humidity is just trapped for that little bit longer where the leaf joins the stem. And then lastly with Annapurna, you can see with Annapurna it's more resistant, but just now untreated, beginning to show Septoria coming in as it starts its grain fill period. But of course these have had no fungicide whatsoever. We've now moved to the same varieties in the same trial, looking now at what the effects are of if we were to have sprayed a flagleaf fungicide. In this case we're using two active ingredients, epoxyconazole and azoxystrobin, present in a number of products. In this particular case we've used Radial at 840 mils a hectare. What you can see with Trojan this year, if we left it until flagleaf, it's just not going to cut the mustard, unfortunately. And so you can still see that we've got considerable damage before we even got to flagleaf. However, if you look then at what we've got with something like Nighthawk, what we can see here is with the single flag spray, we've actually been far more successful at protecting the crop, and the genetic resistance has allowed us to go much further. In fact, what's going to be interesting here is how much of a benefit in a very good season do we get from a single flagleaf fungicide here? Because that's a remarkable result for just a single fungicide. Another cultivar that, as I was saying earlier, we're excited about, that may allow us more flexibility with our fungicide timing is Annapurna. In this case, a single flagleaf fungicide, and giving us similar results to what we observed with the Nighthawk. So we're excited to see just what yield and economics revolve around the difference between these hyper yielding crop plots. Lastly, revenue. Revenue is extremely susceptible to Septoria tritici blotch and leaf rust. And what we can see here is where we've sprayed a flagleaf fungicide at growth stage 39, it has actually done a superb job on the flag itself. But unfortunately, there isn't sufficient genetic resistance to have stopped the disease developing far earlier in the semi-elongation period. And if we part the crop, we can see that it really doesn't, with one single fungicide, keep that lower canopy, the 2, perhaps 3 leaves below the flag, it doesn't keep them clean. And I think we'll see some difference here, but it won't be as significant a step in terms of giving us flexibility with fungicides. Perhaps in a very dry season, yes, but not in a season such as this. What we've done in this block is to take those same 10 varieties, that some of whom we showed you earlier, and now effectively provided a full protection program. And you can see that here with Trojan, I've finally got my green canopy that was lacking where I had a reduced fungicide input. We have within the Hyper Yielding Crops project now the ability to look at these commercial lines and actually look and say, what's the yield differences that we're getting, and were they economic to actually support that extra fungicide expenditure? Or in the cases of some of those more resistant varieties we've seen, actually, do we need those extra fungicides at all?